this is more the center of the frame here. So we're gonna slide over a little bit right here. Slide this off. We're gonna put this here. I'm gonna move this over here like this. And this over here. Boom, 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 boom.
You are now listening to the Just Corrections podcast with your host, William Young.
Can we just get this show on the road?
Violence erupts right in front of you, fist flying, fellow officer, fellow staff member engaged in an altercation, but policy states that you stand by, that you don't get involved. So what do? What should you do? Greetings, my fearless frontliners, my fellow guardians of the galleries. I'm William Young, and this is the Just Corrections podcast. I got an email from a newer officer working somewhere in the Carolinas, and they say they're shadowing, which I assume is like field training or doing something like that. And yesterday, their trainer got into a shoving situation with an inmate, a situation that escalated, right? And per policy, because this officer is new, the officer that sent me this email, because they're new, they're not supposed to engage, to assist, to intervene. And the person that sent me this email, they had a problem with that. So there's this scuffle, right? And this officer starts running towards the scene because they weren't going to let their partner get beat up, weren't going to let their coworker get beat down. And what it says here, it says, I did what I was supposed to do, but wasn't going to let him get beat up. Good thing it stopped before I reached out for the inmate. Policy says that I can't do anything, but morally, I can't watch my training officer get beat down. So my question is, in that situation, what would you do, or what do you think of that policy morally? Now, I love that question for a whole bunch of reasons, but before we dive into that, let me take this moment to thank the members of the Just Corrections Patreon community, the JCP, for supporting this video, for supporting the channel, supporting the message, the movement. Without you, I could not create the content that I create. I appreciate you all. And if you're watching, you're listening, and you'd like to contribute to support the channel, please consider becoming a member. I'll throw a link in the description below. Or if you'd rather just buy a super thanks, you can click that thank you button right below my face. All right, so let's do this. Let's talk about this moral dilemma. Should you act outside of policy, disregard the rules to save a fellow officer, a fellow staff member from getting hurt, assaulted, injured, etc.? And the question is, what would I do, and what do I think of that policy? Well, to quote my 10-year-old nephew, I believe that policy is buns. See, I think that most of us that work in the profession that have been called to serve in this capacity would feel compelled to act, to react if we felt like our fellow officer, a staff member, needed our help. It's a weird thing, and I don't know if it's the fight or flight thing or what, but when you see shit go down, when it is unfolding right in front of you, you just go, you just jump into the pile. And that's my knee-jerk reaction to the question, to the situation. That's my correctional officer brain saying, of course you jump in and handle your business. However, I'm learning as I travel through life that my initial instincts, my initial reactions may not always be the appropriate response. So let's talk about this. Let's look at the whys and the why not, shall we? So let's start with the easy one, the whys. Why would I have jumped in? Why, in the past, have I jumped in? Consequences be damned. Well, it's simple, right? I'm not going to stand there and let a fellow officer get their ass kicked. I can't do that. I operate under the philosophy that what happens to one of us happens to all of us, meaning that if my partner is getting hit, so am I. Now, to be fair, I've never been put in a position where policy excluded me from stepping in, so maybe this is apples and oranges, but I still would. Based on my beliefs and my behavior in other situations, I still would. And then when I was investigated, questioned, or cross-examined, I would explain why. I would explain that I stepped outside of policy to protect my people and hope that my accusers would understand that I did what I had to do. But that behavior is risky, and there are consequences to every action. So I guess morally, no, I could not stand by and watch a coworker get assaulted, get beat. I would have to intervene. But, and here's the big but, if policy specifically speaks to the situation, then you got to follow it. You have to follow it. To step outside of the umbrella of policy could open you up to disciplinary action, termination, and then maybe if you get charged with something, incarceration. So as much as this sucks, as much as the collective correctional community will comment to the contrary, I'd recommend that you follow policy. Now, in this example, this specific scenario, the officer that sent me the question says that his trainer, the officer that he was shadowing, the other officer that got into a shoving match with an inmate, waved him over to assist. So here's my issue. And so let's take a trip down a side street, shall we? Because the answer is what the answer is, right? Follow policy or face consequences. Dumb? Maybe. But stay with me here. So number one, and this is not going to help you in the moment right now. If this thing unfolds right in front of your face tonight when you go on shift, then the following comments are not going to help you. The following solution is not going to help you in that moment. So you're going to have to make a decision. But maybe we should consider changing that policy, changing this policy. New officers shouldn't be on the floor, in the units, on the yard, in harm's way, in a position like this, unless they have self-defense training, unless they're trained. And if they're trained, then they're trained. Everyone that steps foot inside of a correctional facility needs to be ready to be able to defend themselves or others should they need to. The environment is so unpredictable. So if you're putting new people in that position, then don't. It's dangerous. And it creates an issue for everybody that's involved. If you look at this one, the new guy here didn't know what to do, and the veteran officer, the trainer, the training guy, doesn't know what to do either. And now both are in a really shitty position. And here's the other thing while we're talking about training. I'd like to dig in to why we are getting into a shoving match with an inmate. Now, I don't know the details here, but the way that I was trained is that when it's time to go hands-on, it's time to go hands-on. So there's not a lot of shoving. Again, I'm not sure what exactly happened here, so I'm going to speculate because, well, it's my show. So if I'm walking through the day room and an inmate is approaches me, and let's say the inmate looks angry, right? Body language, tense. Maybe they're voicing their displeasure with me or the department, and I feel like there is an actual threat. I will immediately give directions for that individual to stop. And if they stop, then we talk and we go this way. And if they don't, and I feel that an altercation is imminent, then I hit my alarm and I get my help rolling. I get my escorts or my rovers en route, right? Get them headed to my location. And then I try to keep space between us if I can, but if I can't, then it's time to engage. We don't push. We don't shove. You fight like your life depends on it because it very well could. That's why it's important to know your use of force policy and take your defensive tactics training, your DT training seriously and fight. We're way off track here, but the point is let's learn from the situation. Thankfully, it worked out and everybody involved walked away unscathed, but who knows about the next time. Bottom line is here, you have to do what you have to do. Just be careful. Be mindful of the policy. Be mindful of procedures, but at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do to get home. And I don't even know if I answered the question, but there it is. There you go. All right, guys, thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope that gave you maybe something. Maybe there's something of value that you can take from it. I don't know. You keep coming back. I keep putting out the content. You keep coming back. So maybe this is like a weird blind leading the blind scenario. But thank you for hanging out with me today, for spending some of your precious time with me today, for listening, for watching this episode of the podcast. You guys already know, new episodes available every day, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Set a reminder, put a tally mark on your calendar, never miss an episode. Subscribe to the show, click the bell, do all that. You know how YouTube works. You can also follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X. I don't do a lot on Instagram or X, but if you want to find me, track me down, Facebook, LinkedIn is the place to do it. Leave a comment, get involved, engage, share the show with your friends, family, fellow correctional professionals, everybody, the Just Corrections podcast. And if you're interested in supporting the show, consider becoming a member of the Patreon community. There are a couple of different tiers, different options, so check that out. A link to that is in the description below. Don't forget to check out my books, When Home Becomes a Housing Unit, The Nothing That Never Happened, Trained to Change, The Unfortunate and Unintentional Consequences of the Correctional Curriculum. All of those links in the description. All of the books available on Amazon. Order them, read them, consume them, pass them on, help spread the word. And if you'd like to bring me out to speak or present at your facility or your event, send me an email, justcorrections.booking@gmail.com. All right, guys, that's all I got. Until next time, be smart, stay safe, stay sane, and we'll talk soon.